Everyone said it wouldn't work. Pure Summoner using Army of the Dead, the Golem, Skeletons, and still being able to fly through the game 1 to 100, beat the new bosses, and also take on a tier 100 dungeon surprisingly. And that all without a Ring of Mendeln. And that's all thanks to the Vampiric Powers and changes to Wither that made this possible. Very good part about this build is if you commit to it, you can easily swap also into Infinity Mist or Tempest Storm and turn it into a Mendeln Summoner if you ever feel like it. My favorite part about this build is Army of the Dead. Not only does great damage with the boots we're playing, more for that in the gear section, it also resummons all your minions and leaves behind tons of corpses. Even if they completely get wiped out, you more or less have Army of the Dead permanently off cooldown to just get everything back up again. As the gameplay loop, we curse with Decrepify, blight them as much as we can, corpse explosion the hell out of them, and also golem them together the whole time. We don't have space for corpse tendrils. That's what we have the golem for. Yes, golem could be replaced through corpse tendrils, but he's just too much fun to have, and we're rocking the full summoner. Now with Army of the Dead, your minions also have the 90% damage reduction running, so they won't actually die. Use that especially when you're fighting elemental elites that they're not getting blasted ever into pieces. And then with the Decrepify and all your other skills, you're permanently having this on cooldown. Your shadow damage allows your minions to do more damage. Standing close to your mages has them hellbent commandered up. And yes, the shadow damage of your shadow mages also helps you to proc your shadow blight, that in total there's just more damage rolling in. Now due to Coven's Fangs and Feed the Coven, there's permanently more damage coming out of your minions and yourself, plus your essence is just skyrocketing the whole time. And due to Prey on the Weak, your Vampiric Cursed enemies are also vulnerable. All of you do more damage. Vampiric Powers just fit into perfection with the minion build. Now let's run through the skill tree, gear aspects, Paragon board, everything. Skills are pretty straightforward. We begin with a Reap into Enhanced Reap for a little bit of bonus attack speed, but we don't really use that much. Then straight up Blight into Enhanced Blight for the slow, and a Supernatural Blight for the 15% bonus damage for you and your minion. Blight also gets completely maxed out. You do one Hoot Flash into also maxed out Corpse Explosion together with Enhanced Corpse Explosion and Blighted Corpse Explosion. We're not going for Blood Mist. Nope, there's no Blood Mist. 3 points in Skeletal Warriors, also the maximum fueled by death damage. Then Decrepify is the most important part of your build to have the cooldown reduction running, and then bonus damage against cursed enemies. For more life and damage, you don't have the points for Death Reach or Death Embrace, but you also don't really need it in this build. Still though, we're going to go for Reaper's Pursuit. That's movement speed, a little bit of stuns, and here it's important. This is stacking shadow damage for you and your minions. This is also stacking shadow damage for you and your minions against stunned, frozen, immobilized, everything enemies. No Fortify, nothing. Straight down here into Army of the Dead, with Army of the Dead making volatile skeletons that explode and be left behind corpses, and Supreme Army of the Dead for raising everyone back up again. 3 points into Golem to make him super tanky and give him like 100,000 life roughly. And then we just want to have the bonus attack speed, the Hellbent Commander for a wee bit more damage, and also the Death Defense for armor and elemental resistance. But it's not really worth it because again, if your minions die, we're just going to continuously resummon them. Now I did put 1 point too much into Death Defense. Let's put that out so we get the Shadow Blight key passive, which also works again every 10th time an enemy receives shadow damage from you or your minions while they are affected by Shadow Blight. They take additional shadow damage. Yes, this works with your shadow mages. And yes, this is also what we're playing with the Book of the Dead. Skeletal Warriors as Reapers for the bonus corpses. Skeletal Mages as Shadow Mages with the bonus attack. Technically, you could go for the stun. The bonus attack just seems better because you have 5 mages. Every force attack is a bonus attack. So it's like 5 attacks, and then it's suddenly 10 attacks. And every attack again stacks Shadow Blight, which hides the damage of all of us. Last but not least, the Bone Golem, which gives us bonus corpses and can taunt everyone together. Aspects pretty straightforward. For the helmet, we're going for Vicious for the bonus Skeletal Mages, and here we're looking for maximum life, intelligence, cooldown reduction, total armor. For the chest, we want the bonus in Skeletal Warriors, and here also maximum life, maximum minion life, total armor, and ultimate skill damage because that kind of scaled super nice with our Army of the Dead. As the gloves, you want the Hell from Below because that gives you Lucky a Chance, corpse skill, attack speed, and you can just yeet all the volatile skeletons around. These volatile skeletons will leave behind corpses because of your Army of the Dead skills. It's just so good in a combination. If you do not have the Hell from Below here, you want to have gloves that have Blight on it. And also shadow damage over time and intelligence. The last stat is free to choose. The Panzer's aspect of the Hardened Bones for the damage reduction on all your minions works really good with maximum minion life, maximum life, damage reduction from affected by shadow damage over time, and overall damage reduction. Technically, you could look for Corpse Explosion ranks, but don't really need that. For the boots, we're running Flicker Step, which gives us ultimate skill damage, and that's 80%. That makes our Army of the Dead so much more efficient, and when you dash through minions, you actually do get the cooldown, and it works really good that your minions do the damage, and you're dashing through things, you're going around, you're reducing some cooldowns. It's just quite nice, especially with the ultimate skill damage going on. For the weapon, we want the aspect of Decay to stack our Shadow Blight key passive damage that's being stacked by our Shadow Mages as well, and that preferable on a 1 for the lucky hit, so we always have Hood Flash running. And here we're looking for ultimate skill damage, damage to affected by shadow damage over time enemies, intelligence, and damage over time in general. Amulet would be the Blighted because that's the maximum damage stack we can get. That's 180% damage increase to everything as we stack Shadow Blight 10 times. And here's Ranks in the Gloom passive that would increase the damage of our minions really nicely, or Hellbent Commander, but Gloom passive is you and your minions getting bonus damage, intelligence, ultimate skill damage, and shadow damage over time. For the aspect of Reanimation on the ring, your minions gain 40% damage after being alive for 10 seconds. Super good. And also here, maximum life, maximum minion life, damage to affected by shadow damage over time, and damage over time. The same goes for the next ring, and here we're playing Frenzied Den, where your minions get stacking higher attack speeds. This is also the one to replace through the Ring of Mendeln if you have it. That being said, the Ring of Mendeln build is quite different to this one, but just as a heads up. And then on the offhand, you want to have the Unyielding Commander, which is 100% bonus attack speed when Army of the Dead is active and 90% reduced damage. And that one is so important. And the best part is you can get this from the Codex of Powers as well. For the offhand, we want maximum minion life, cooldown reduction, intelligence. The last one is free to choose. Damage reduction from affected by shadow damage over time, lucky hit, whatever you feel like. Amethyst in the weapons, ruby in the armor, diamonds in your jewelry for the elemental resistance. Vampiric Powers we're taking. Feed the Coven. Your minions have a 60% chance to restore 10 primary resource, and also they higher your damage by 10% multiplicative. That's really nice. That gets followed up by Undying, where casting skills heals you, and as we're continuously cursing, using our minions, throwing blights, skeletal priests, Army of the Dead, we're just always healthy and we never have to use a potion. Then also Flowing Veins, where you deal 60% increased damage over time to enemies that are moving or affected by a vampiric curse. And that's where the Coven's Fangs comes in. Your Conjuration, Companion, Minion, and Bat Familiars attacks deal 52% increased damage. Cool. To crowd-controlled enemies. And we have our Decrepify for crowd control. And then they have a 30% chance to afflict Vampiric Curse. So they'll be Vampiric Cursed and they'll take damage over time. Plus, now we also deal 16% increased damage to vulnerable enemies, and enemies are vulnerable when they're affected by Vampiric Curse. And that's how we have a constant source of off vulnerable without even trying to have vulnerable. Last but not least, Paragon board, and that's where you focus mostly on intelligence. And here we're going first for Scourge. You do more shadow damage over time, but you and your minions deal also 10 increased damage to enemies affected by shadow damage over time. So a big stack for you and your minions. That brings us then into the co-leader board, and in the co-leader board, we take everything. We have the Dead Razor Glyph to reduce the damage our minions would take with the damage reduction nodes, but also to have enemies take even more damage from me and my minions. And then we take the mage damage, the warrior damage, the attack speed, the bonus armor, the maximum life, all of that into the co-leader. Which brings us to the right side into the Wither board, and here we're also taking everything Wither related plus Wither itself and the Darkness Glyph for more shadow damage, but also for enemies to deal less damage to me and my minions again. And yes, here the Wither is being taken. That brings us all the way to the right into Flesh Eater for the multiplicative bonus damage on consuming corpses, and also the Amplify Glyph, which makes me and my minions again deal more damage to enemies, multiplicative, and we do more damage against elites because this also boosts the magic nodes and we get a bit more resistance to all elements for free. Lastly, we're going up into the Hulking Monstrosity board, and that is just for the legendary node because 40% increased life and 100% increased damage is quite nice for him. He's just going to go up to 100k roughly. And then also I deal more damage while the Golem is active, and I have more armor while the Golem is active. That's quite nice. This ain't an ultra S tier build, but it's so much fun, and especially when it comes from 1 to 100 leveling, you're flying through any challenge, early Elias, early Capstone Dungeon, all that kind of stuff easily. You're looking for something to beat Lilith in 60 seconds, Bloodlands, or rather any 100 Nightmare Dungeon in a minute, Tempest Storm.